and this is something that I get asked quite regularly, is when do I prioritize paying down my debt, or do I prioritize saving first? And I always say pay down the debt.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here for episode 2 of the Investors Podcast, which is brand new episode type that we're bringing to the channel, to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. It's such a relevant topic at the moment, I think, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, business, wealth, and character, that's what we're really trying to bring with every conversation and every bit of content we bring to the table. So we are here with Brayden Cooke, who is our expert. He's the expert panelist when it comes to investing. And basically what we're going to do is initially try to create really great educational content as it relates to investing in a sequential order. So, we started with how to get started and fundamentals. And today we're going to be talking about savings. And as Brayden said to me before, you can't invest money that you don't have, which is a great point. But I think it's, there's going to be some kind of little sidetracks that we go down and to talk about, the best ways to save. How does investing relate to saving? And are they mutually exclusive? Are they the same thing? And we'll kind of go down that path. But I'll hand it over to Brayden now, and he'll, I guess, what's the importance of savings?
Financial security, I suppose. You want to be able to, I don't know, you don't want to be living paycheck to paycheck and having that insecurity and that anxiety that revolves around that every day.
I think that last part is actually the most prominent reason to save, because financial stress and anxiety is probably the worst. Financial stress is probably the most horrible stress to go through because there's so much uncertainty. If you can create that buffer, it just gives you that safety net. And that's realistically, if you look at human nature, all we want is safety.
It's a really good point. I was actually talking to one of our clients today and had a conversation with him, and he brought up a really good point, and he just had a massive life change. And he said to me, and he asked me a question. He goes, "Hey, He goes, I got a question for you." And I go, yeah, shoot. And he goes, "Oh, it's just more about growth." And he's like, he goes, I just feeling really tense. He goes, about hiring and these kind of things. He goes, what do you think? Do you think I need to do it? And it was a really good point, because it really brought up this, and it was my answer to this question was more around this topic. I go, you've just gone through a massive life change. And often Instagram and the outside pressure is what causes us to feel like we always need to be growing and always need to be scaling. And I ended up saying to him, I'm like, look, man, the reality is you've gone through massive life change. He just had a child, so he just had a child. And I was like, look, the reality is your priorities right now are very different to what they were 6 months ago. I said, you can do whatever you want to do. There is no right or wrong. You can continue doing your craft and being singular and just, having a very profitable business, and have that security. And also that means less stress that you take home, and you can prioritize being a father right now and start building that capital for potentially something that you want to do down the line. And that was my biggest thing is savings. You can build economic security right now, because the reality is growing a business costs capital. Yeah. If you're truly trying to scale a company, it costs you money. And that's very stressful, because sometimes, you can fly too close to the sun. And that's the reality. And that is the tightrope you're walking as a business owner. But I think what you said, right, is when I got that question, my first thing was, what's your priorities? There is no right or wrong answer to this, but it's a timing thing. Yeah, because the reality is he probably doesn't, if he doesn't save this money and create this economic security, he might not actually be able to scale his company. So I think savings is important when investing across the board, whether it's investing in fucking stocks, cryptocurrency, your own business, lifestyle, whatever you're investing in.
And the reason we have it is for times of uncertainty as well. So COVID happens, and then all of a sudden your income's gone, and you then have to rely on whatever you got sitting in the bank for a couple of months, or until JobKeeper kicks in or JobSeeker, whatever it may be. Those sort of things come in, and they happen so often that but we regularly prepare for it.
Money and savings, man. Like cash on hand, essentially is anti-fragile. It gives you the ability to be fluid. It gives you the ability to pivot if shit goes wrong, or if shit's going really well and you need to double down and reinvest capital. Like, I don't see savings to be something that's always just there for a rainy day, for a bad situation, but also for a fucking great one too. Like, it gives you the ability to take opportunities and also put you in better opportunities as well.
And it always feels good when you see your savings balance grow as well. Yeah. You talk about progressing and that sort of thing. That's a key component of it. Just being able to see that little buffer that you've got is continually growing, and it's a way of showing that your hard work is paying off as well.
I think, the other thing, like Rhys, you said that before, and you mentioned COVID. If we didn't have the capital sitting in the bank as a business, there's no way we would have been able to tackle courses the way we did, where we could go really high-end production and really kind of make that another revenue stream and do it successfully, we could do that. We did that straight away. That was as soon as we seen what was happening, we could go and dive into that. Even though it wasn't that capital intensive at the start, we ended up doing it, going over and above with that now. And it's really solidified as another revenue stream. And I think that's just a prime example of capital, right? Your ability to have capital in the bank for that rainy day, for that opportunity that might be coming. Even something as little as buying the dip, there's been a massive pullback at the moment, and I'm actually shattered that I didn't have more money to invest. But I think
you didn't buy the dip.
I bought the dip, but I didn't buy
enough of the dip
as much as what I would have liked.
And I went too heavily in the beginning, and so now I'm at a point where I'm so cash poor.
Dude, where I was like to you, I was like, nah, I'm going to let it play out.
Uh-huh.
I waited about 3 hours, like, nah, fuck it, I'll buy more of the dip.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So the other day, but I think it's important, and saving is a skill, right? And that's really what it is your ability to understand. Financial literacy is it's a superpower. So your ability to learn the skills of financial literacy and start to build capital in the bank, and then understand how to manage your money outside of that is really important. So how does savings then? What's the importance of savings as it relates to investing then?
Well, it's always just handy to have money for times when the market's down, really. You might also find an opportunity in a company that really excites you and you want to dollar cost average your way into it. That's the reason why you want to have cash from an investments point of view. But it's more so for that financial security, in my opinion. You want to make sure that you're always going to be able to cover your mortgage or your rent. Always going to be able to put food on the table and that sort of thing. And then if you have money left over, that's where you can then put that thing to work and then allow you to obviously grow your money.
Do you have any sort of I know I have my own personal methodology to saving and the way I save. Do you have a personal methodology that you see works well?
You got to tax yourself.
Yeah.
Tax yourself.
Yep.
As soon as money hits your bank account, you set aside a certain element of that, and then you don't touch that money. Mm-hmm. So it could be 10%, and then you just make do with the rest. And then if you spend the rest of it, doesn't matter because you've already saved away that 10%. I remember back in the day when I actually had an income. Mm-hmm.
There's a little flex.
Back in the day when I had an income, I was trying to put away 50% of how much I was making. Because I just knew that was the way that I was going to be able to get ahead. And I was at that point, I was just addicted to just putting into the market every single month. And so whatever I could earn, I would tax myself straight away as soon as it hit my account, and then I'd just live off what was left.
I have a little bit different, whereas I have 3 months of expenses, personal expenses covered in an account. That just sits there, and then I've got another a rainy day fund that is just set at an amount. That's just my if I ever fucking need it, it's so there.
You have 2 emergency funds.
I have my 3 months of 3 months of expenses where it just sits there, and that's just a high interest saving, just does its thing. And then I've just got a set amount that if I ever need quick cash, mm-hmm. that I'm willing to pull out from. right? So the rainy day fund is essentially 3 months, sits there, doesn't ever move. Whereas if I've got this other account that's just like 5K sits in there.
And why do you have that?
If I want to pull quick cash.
Okay.
Because if, for example, my 3 month account is if I got fucking real sick, couldn't do, like, granted, my fucking job is online, but if I couldn't do anything, that's where I'd start paying from.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the rest is play money.
So I don't get what your second one is.
My second one is quick cash. So, for example, like if we just started a marketing campaign, right? Instead of pulling from like profits, it's just like, sweet, that just comes from the business, and it's a business account for quick expenses. And I always just top that back up, and it stays at zero. It stays at its 5K 0 point.
Okay. Interesting.
It's money it's essentially play money I'm willing to spend.
Yeah.
So, and then I just keep it just top that up every time I spend.
But what
it.
was your strategy? So when you were just starting out, how would you go about savings?
Dude, when I first started out, I didn't save. Spent stupid money on stupid shit. But that, honestly, man, I think like...
But when did it click? There must have been a time when it clicked.
I think it's actually a worthwhile conversation to have, because when it comes to saving, like my business started doing well when I was young. And I learned how not to save money very early, which I'm fucking glad I did, because now it's put me in a position where I understand the value of it and what a point of stress is and what a point of stress isn't. So like I know my safety net now, and I can go, okay, well, sweet. From there, I can actually be comfortable. But what was the tipping point was... My tipping point was I went to the accountant and he was like, hey, you owe more tax than what you fucking have in money. I was like,
That's when you know you've got a spending problem.
Yeah, I had a ridiculously big spending problem. But that conversation was the thing that goes, all right, sweet.
Did it ever lead you to a path where like you were spending so much you required like credit in order to make those sort of purchases?
No. So I was, I've never had a credit card in my life.
Never?
No.
That's so good.
No. I
have.
Yeah.
I still do, but I use it more for travel and to gain points and that sort of thing. I use it for the benefit side of thing.
Yep.
Back when I was younger, I had a couple of credit cards.
I've got a credit card now, but I basically put all of our business expenses on it and then just pay it off every week.
Yeah, but most people don't. Most people most people will pay off the minimum amount.
Mate, like I've got a fucking... Like, if you knew my story, like...
My story is similar to yours, dude.
No.
Of your spending habits.
No. So when I was 18...
He's the cheapest man alive.
No, when I was 18... And I've got this deeply ingrained fear in me from my experiences. And this will resonate with a lot of people, but when I was 18, like I was a party boy, right? And...
Trazer.
Yeah, I was a party boy, and... like I was just dumb. Like, you know what, man? I didn't get my first job until I've never had my first job. My first job was fucking starting my own business. But I just didn't, like, you know, from 16 to 18, man, like I just played football. I had it all my own way. You know, I just didn't get taught any of that stuff. Like none of those skills. Like I had a poor relationship with my father, so I didn't see him. And then mum would work from 7 till 7, man. Like, I'd get home, she's cooked dinner, and then we're like, it's bedtime, and like, we're all winding down. But when I was 18, I was driving to a footy trip, and I just bought my first car. So it was like $3,000 car, and my parents, my mum at the time, and my dad, because we started talking again, and this is where it didn't go down well. Asked me to get insurance, and me just being a young kid had no idea really what it meant. I crashed a car into a car. So I wrote my car off, but I also wrote the other car off and had no insurance.
Are you surprised?
No.
But, you know, the reality is like, you know, I didn't know this stuff. Like I didn't get, like honestly, man, like I fucking...
Was it your fault too?
100%.
So it was on you to pay...
40 grand on a credit card.
Shit.
40 grand.
I remember this, bro.
40 grand on a credit card. In debt.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't get out of debt until
It's amazing how far that sets you back, because what people don't realize is the interest actually accrues interest, and that compounds.
Mate, I ended up paying back about 75 grand.
Yeah.
So I started from negative 75. Right? Negative 75. And I clawed my way back ridiculously. Like, and like absolutely clawed my way back to the point where I just remember like the fucking getting out of credit, and like it was just ridiculously liberating.
Yeah.
Like I was like, holy fucking shit. Like I can actually start saving money.
Big question. Do you have insurance now?
Definitely.
Good.
But, you know, it was one of those things that, you know, as I said, I just growing up, like I didn't get taught this stuff, you know, like I just didn't. My mum worked fucking ridiculous hours. Like she's my hero because if it wasn't for that, I'd be fucking, I wouldn't have gone to school. I wouldn't have done any of that stuff.
Yeah. My mum drilled into me that you pay, like you get your insurances and you pay everything on time. Because obviously then it accrues fees and then potentially interest on top of all those sort of things. And so she drilled it into me to always make sure I was paying them off. But so many people don't, and they get themselves into this trap. And this is something that I get asked quite regularly is, when do I prioritize paying down my debt, or do I prioritize saving first? And I always say pay down the debt.
Because until you pay down the debt, the money ain't yours.
That's it. It's always coming out of your pocket.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to get that paid off because that will then free you up to the point where you can start saving all of it.
Well, it's like what I said before. The load of financial stress, even having repayments, that's like just financial stress in general is the most crippling stress that I've ever experienced, at least.
It's a big reason why relationships break down too.
Of course. Yeah.
Big reason.
Yeah. It's an interesting space to look into. Like if you look at like the dynamic of a couple and how they save together versus how they originally saved individually. Like I have like friends all the time that we're talking about how they save now that they're in like a committed relationship with their partner versus how they saved before.
Very different story. It makes a massive difference because now you've got two incomes basically to help look after a very similar lifestyle.
Yep.
Because then you're covering your rent and all that sort of thing based off that. And then you've got your discretionary spending, which is like probably more expensive because you've got someone in your life and that sort of thing. But it makes such a difference. It allows you to save.
It's a shared load as well. The stress is shared.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing with like this though, like, and the biggest thing, the lesson that I learned going through that, you know, amongst that of paying that off, I was trying to build a business at the same time, living out of home, lost my license, had to pay 2 rents.
Well, yeah, cause like I can tell this story from the external. Like, you know, Kyle and I were working in the same space, and I remember him coming in like, "Yeah, cool, I crashed my car," and then like within the month he'd lost his license and was also moving gyms as well, and essentially running 2 businesses. And then you also tried to bring on people underneath you in that time too, and it was like, fuck, there are a million plates spinning right now, and he's not understating when he says like.
It drove me into a state of anxiety.
Yeah, but you're not understating the fact that you had to claw your way back. Like that wasn't that wasn't a simple process,
dude. Like, you know, I crashed the car when I was 19, and then made the move at 21. So I had a business that was, you know, functioning at the time, built it up, and then, you know, I lost my license as I was moving gyms. And I just recently got a new house in Port Melbourne. So, you know, every day I would wake up at 3 a.m, fucking get the first.
That grind.
I'd get the first train from Southern Cross Station. Nobody else was there. It was just me every day. I would start at 5 a.m, work all day till 12, PTing, then catch the train back to Port Melbourne, and I would build my business up at Port Melbourne and like clawed my way out of it. But I think like what I was going to say, the biggest thing with that whole scenario is just taking responsibility. I think for the first 3 years from 18 to 21 through that whole process, I said to you just then, I said, you know, I didn't get taught that stuff. I didn't get this. I didn't get that. And although I think it's somewhat the truth, the reality is I was using that as an excuse to not have to change my behavior.
It's easy to not take responsibility though when you're young and naive.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that changed for me was like, I go, okay, you still spend like an idiot. You actually make good money right now, and you can't control that.
Well, that's where I was about to lead it. That was an unfortunate circumstance. That isn't going to happen to everybody. But the reason why people do get into trouble is because they overspend, and they don't, or they live beyond their means.
Yeah.
And that's how they fall into that trap and that debt trap.
So how do you best explain the axis or the relationship between spending and saving? Like, how do you get that to be something that someone can actually understand? Because like savings is one of those things that's like a little bit up in the wazzy woo of like how to do it. It's just like, just put money aside. It sounds simpler than for what many people it is. So how do you start to create a better relationship?
It's a psychological thing because you have to be willing to sacrifice now in order to live a more balanced life in the future.
Okay, so how do you do that? Because for you,
yeah,
you're in a circumstance where you've been in the financial space forever. There are people sitting at home that go, all right, well, sick.
Well, you just have to prioritize what's more important to you. Is it more important to you to be walking around in designer brands, or is it more important to you to feel financially secure and not have that anxiety around money?
This is what I was saying before, right? Like, honestly, it's about taking responsibility. Like, you guys bag me a little bit because I'm a tight ass. I'm still working from that point of fear. Like, I don't ever want to go back to that place. Yeah,
we've spoken about that before. Like, I think the most successful people in the world still operate from a position of fear.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for me, man. Is like, I know what it was like to be there, and I'm still scared to go back, and that still it affects the way I manage my money now.
It's a great habit to be in. Like, you might get to a point where you've got enough money that you can eventually enjoy it, but you're still in this period where you're living quite modestly, and you focus on building up that savings because it will get you to a point where you won't have that anxiety later on, and you can live a more balanced life. That's the goal, and that's where you need to change that mindset. And that's where you need to really sit down and figure out what your priorities are. Because until you do that, you're going to continue to fall into that trap, and you're just going to get worse and worse and worse until that anxiety builds up to a point where you're at a breaking point.
Let's pull this back to a smaller scale, though, right? Take out designer brands, take out like stupid spending habits. Let's say someone is at home that doesn't earn a lot of money. They're just scraping by with paying their rent. They're doing their stuff, and they're living within their means, but they still want to save.
That's when you need to look to either upskill yourself or find an additional source of income. Okay. So that's where you go out and you find your side hustle. Like, this is where people go out and they have 2 to 3 jobs, where they're working their 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends they're working in a bar. Mm-hmm. Because that's like, unfortunately, when you're
savings.
Yeah, when you're young, that's the time that you need to prioritize all of this because it compounds.
And I just want to add something to that as well. Like, I think savings as a term for the everyday listener can get a little bit confusing because, like, I'll be honest, like, at the moment, I pretty much sit on about 10 grand in cash, and then everything else is invested. But that still is a form of savings, except the only difference is
100%. I'm very much cash poor at the moment, but my savings is obviously quite large, and that helps
because
me.
It's diversified in other avenues.
Yeah, so that's right. It doesn't necessarily have to be cash in the bank. It can be investments, it can be property, it can be all those sort of things. But like, fundamentally, we're talking about having cash in the bank.
Well, realistically, this is where coming back to like where I say, like, for me, having 3 months cash on hand is my safety net, and then I can invest everything else because that's liquid. That's
right. There's no point investing your money if you're living paycheck to paycheck.
No, because if shit goes tits up for you in your life, you can't pull out. Like, you could probably, what is it, like a 24-hour time period? Once you sell, you have your money within 24 hours?
2 days,
48 hours. Okay, so when you sell, you could have quick money potentially.
That's just stocks, though.
Potentially, but
property is even longer.
Yeah, property is way longer. But then if you look at, like, what happens if you need the money before the 48 hours? Or what happens if you pulling out actually pushes you into a worse position because you've actually lost money on the investment in that point?
And that's where credit cards come in. Correct. And that's how people fall into this
so having that safety net of savings, like, I think especially in our generation, savings are often glorified to a point where you're just trying to grow. And let's say even after you've bought the house, you're still just like saving. And they're not actually putting money into investing. Maybe because they don't understand where to put it or what to do. But savings gets often over-glorified. Once they have that safety net, it's like, do you see much point after having the safety net? Do you really see much point in just growing your bank account?
No, at that point, that's when you want to have your money working for you. Because you also have to realize that the smaller the numbers, like, say you've got $10,000 that you want to invest, and you're spending all your money. You're now not saving any money. You've just got the 10 grand. You want to invest that money. A 10% return on that is only $1,000. The biggest difference that you can make is to focus in on your spending habits, because that will have the biggest impact on how much.
$1,000 of
exactly. It's not until you get up to the 100,000 sort of level that you've got invested, and a 10% return on that is $10,000. That's when it starts to become meaningful money.
Well, it's the same.
That's a side hustle.
Well, it's the old saying of like more money, more problems.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like less money, less return.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's where you need to prioritize reining in those expenses, and then if you are just struggling to get by, that's where you need to focus on trying to upskill yourself or getting a side hustle.
So I'll play devil's advocate then, right? And so, because, I mean, I look at it a little bit differently, and I'm like, okay, like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, of course, you do have to change those spending habits. But the reality is like, I think that for somebody who's earning a low income, if you can actually change those spending habits, and I think everybody has the opportunity to do it, how much that's relative, and some people it's not much, right? If you've got family and you're not having that much money coming in, but if you're investing, like, let's say that you can save $200 a week. What's to say at the end of the month, right? You cannot have, that $400 in savings and then invest $400 into the markets, or invest that into something. I
suppose that comes down to your risk profile. So for me, that's exactly what I did. I was saving, when I first started out, I was trying to save $250 a week, which meant that by the end of the month, I had $1,000 to invest. And then people would argue, but what about having a 6-month emergency fund? Well, my argument would be that my 6-month emergency fund is my investment. I can always, it is fairly liquid. I can have that money. Back in those days, it was 3 days that you could pull it out, but that's fairly liquid. And I also had a credit card in case.
Yeah, and provided it wasn't wasn't down, you'd be in a good spot. Yeah.
Exactly. And at that time, I had a credit card, so if Red Joe was due or something like that, I could just put it on the credit card and then I'd be able to get that money off the market. Well, actually, no, I didn't. I was a bit naughty and I just paid it out of my savings. But yeah, that's an alternative as well. So for me, yes, I invested it straight away. But other people, it might feel better to have that money sitting in their savings. But that's a psychological thing.
Well, it's what you said. It's risk profile. If you have 4 kids, a mortgage, and you're only able to put away $300 a week, that'd be a pretty scary place to be.
Exactly. That's where, you got to look at your circumstances as well. Like, I was a single guy. My expenses weren't high. I didn't have any dependents. So that wasn't my priority. And I could afford to take a lot more risk. Whereas someone like that, they wouldn't.
Realistically, in your circumstance, if everything went bad, you've still got a room.
Even today.
Yeah.
If say all of my investments went to zero and I had to declare bankruptcy tomorrow, I've still got enough skills to be able to go out and get a job because I don't have any dependents. I could break my lease. I could potentially move back home.
If you ever needed to, I think we are generally, as a society in Western culture, we are very lucky, generally, right? Of course, there are circumstances where this doesn't apply, but we are very lucky that especially while we're young, if shit really goes that bad, it ain't that bad.
No. It's not life or death.
No.
If my investments go to zero, I'm not going to have to worry about where I'm going to get food the next day. I just have to get myself back into the workforce and start again.
And this is where you said, it would be, say, normal to have a 6-month reserve fund.
Yeah.
This is where, say, for me, I'm happy to have 3 because I know if everything went to shit, I could probabably start another business and make it profitable within 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'd be able to use my skills, whether it be in product sales or creating e-com or coaching, selling time. I'd be able to do it in less than 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we draw this back, I think there's some key principles, right? It's have an emergency fund or just cash on hand, and that should be relative to probably something on a minimum to 3 months of your income, right? So
expenses.
Yeah, your expenses. And then from there, then you would allocate a certain amount on a monthly basis that you're willing to invest, and that can form your type of savings in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna quote Braids on this. When we first met, I was very cash heavy, I didn't have any sort of diversification throughout my where my money was, and at the end of the day, Braids just said to me, after you've covered expenses, what's it doing? What is your money doing? Just accruing 2% a year?
Actually losing money.
You're literally losing money with the rate they're printing it. So that was kind of the penny dropping moment for me. Where
I learned early on because I was heavily influenced by Warren Buffett, and one of his principles is that $1 today is $10 tomorrow. So this is how I sort of started to view money, and I then quickly realized that.
Can you explain that?
Sorry?
Explain that concept.
So $1 today over time will compound based on, I don't know, say a 10% rate. That'll eventually compound to a point where it is $10. So every year that money compounds, and then you're earning money on top of your principal and then also that interest as well. And so over time it'll compound. Yep. And so with knowing this, I was then able to say, okay, well, I will be able to do without this good or service or whatever it might be, and I'm going to put this money to work for me, knowing that in the future that's going to be worth a whole lot more than what it is today. Whereas if I had just bought something that depreciated in value, it brought me instant validation, but not long-term validation.
Do you still find validity in instant validation purchases now? I'm impulsive, yes, but often I do talk myself out of it. Yeah.
There are some times where I don't, and it's okay to treat yourself too. There's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself, but yeah, at some point you've got to ask yourself, look, yes, this will make me feel happy today, but will it make me feel happy in a year's time when I'm stressing about money? Yeah. And that's where it comes down to. And I've had this conversation about cars, I could so easily go out and get a really nice car, but at the end of the day, in a year's time, that car's going to be no different to the car I'm driving right now. It's still just going to get me from A to B, and yet I'll be spending more on the maintenance and everything like that.
I'm eventually going to be a moped guy. I seriously think I'll be a moped guy. One of my favorite things is...
What about on days like this where it's raining?
Hey, I'm
day off.
Yeah, exactly.
We ain't coming in.
Bali vibes. You know what I mean? Just scootering around everywhere. Just live within that little area and just scooter everywhere.
I'll challenge you on that though, because what about when you eventually have kids? Then it becomes more about you need to protect yourself and be a little bit more risk averse.
Nah, bro. Haven't you seen the Bali meme with the guy? He's got 7 dogs on his scooter.
Yeah, Kyle's going to be that guy. He's going to be standing out the front of his house with his shirt tucked up like the dudes in Bali, just fanning his stomach.
No. You know the Bali guy with all the 7 dogs, and he's got the dog on his head, on his shoulders. That's going to be me with my kids.
Well, this is why people go out. Once they have kids, they go out and buy SUVs. Because it becomes more about safety.
It's funny, man. I went through that phase, like I said before, of I had I had really shitty spending habits when I first started doing well. And I bought myself a nice car, right? And then I bought a nicer car, right? And
which you bought on finance.
Yeah. Again, I look at it now, a silly decision, right? However, and I think you would probably agree on this, once you've had a nice enough car, you're probably not going to go backwards to a beater.
No, it's the same premise flying business. It's very hard to go back to economy.
I agree. I fucking agree. I've flown economy 3 times in my life.
Yeah.
And that's just because my dad worked at Qantas and I got mad benefits. But
I'll probably start flying business now. But I honestly, it's the same with my car. It's the same with everything. I've just worked from this place of fear, and I'm just I never want to go back there. And I still do it to this day. I will tight ass it on things, and only now I'm starting to loosen up a little bit. But I think it's.
I was going to say there before I forget. Sorry to cut you off, but I got the nice car. Right, then I got the nicer car, but like in any businesses, my business has gone through its point of a low, and I was like, "Fuck, could you sell my car?" So
you were chasing that instant validation.
Yeah, back then
it was all ego driven. And
do you know what, bro? It wasn't even for me. I was all about what were people going to think.
Exactly.
100%.
So you got it for the instant validation to begin with, and then you had to work hard then to pay it off.
Yeah.
Whereas I quickly learned that. And this is something my granddad drilled into me because he was just one of those old school, hard-ass guys who would just work his ass off and, he'd still be a tight ass at the end of the day. But he drilled into me that you work hard and then you reward yourself. So, for me, I was able to just buy my car in cash because I knew that I'd done the work and I now had the resources.
I could have at that point too.
Well, yeah.
So silly.
I mean, to be fair, if with interest rates being so low and that sort of thing, I understand
But
why
that's
it's
not,
okay.
that didn't go through my head. Bro.
No.
It was just like, okay, I don't have to pay for it now. I was dumb.
Yeah.
I had no idea how money worked at the point.
Yeah.
But
You also put it on your business, and it depreciates over time. So
Yeah.
it's
I'm
a
good.
good, it's a
there
good
are-
business
there
expense.
are
to
Look,
have.
at the end of the
there's
day, when
loopholes.
it comes time for me to, if I do sell it, I will probably sell it at a break-even point, and I won't actually lose, even with all of the expenses that have gone into it.
and you're writing off the depreciation against your
Absolutely.
your
Absolutely.
profits and that sort of thing.
But the one thing that I will say is, in those points where business has, like all businesses, the roller coaster of business, on those lulls, it's been like, fuck, I could just sell my car. And it's one of those things where I'm like, this was such a silly decision because I'd rather have the cash there as safety for those lulls rather than be like, oh shit, I have to sell an asset, or not even an asset. It's a fucking thing that's depreciating.
It's like this comes back to what I was saying before. The car that you're driving now, sure, it's nice, but it's really no different to driving around in a $20,000 car, is it?
No, it's not. But this is where I think there's a medium. There's a point where you go, okay, nice car. I'm probably not going to go back to a beater, but it's also not going to be that much different to a $700,000 car.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, at that point, like, this is a very oversimplification. And granted, I don't fucking drive a $700,000 car, so this is probably a little bit biased because I'm just going off my current opinion. But fast is fast. My car's fucking fast, right? Like,
it has all the same internals as well.
Yeah, and
Like,
I can
it's
only
all
go the
pretty much
speed
the
limit.
same.
I can only go
Yeah,
the speed limit.
yeah.
I can't drive the $700,000 car any differently. So I think now it's just perspective. Granted, if there was like $10 million on the table that was just liquid, maybe I'd go do something silly.
Well, this is why people often go broke after winning the lotto because they haven't
They don't change their
their
lifestyle.
They haven't changed their lifestyle, or they haven't got a good relationship with money, and so now they've got this windfall, but they don't realize that when you buy a house, there's maintenance that's involved, there's rates that's involved, and like their spending habits increase proportionately to.
Yeah,
or
well,
actually more so than what they've
more.
actually brought in.
It's all good and well to buy the big, crazy big wine fridge or the wine cellar, but you got to stock it. Like, you've got to keep it full.
Yeah, that's it. And the same, like a $700,000 car is probably going to cost you $30,000-$40,000 in maintenance every year.
At least.
Yeah,
Dude, no way.
and then you've got your insurance.
That would
on
annoy
top
me.
Of that.
That would genuinely annoy me. But
That's just a
regardless,
sunk cost.
my point, like, I think that bringing this back to savings, if you can have that safety net and not spend money on stupid things that are going to depreciate and make too many impulsive decisions, again, nice to reward yourself, but it's more comforting to have the safety net than it is to be like, fuck, what can I sell?
Yeah. Well, this is how impulsive I was. Earlier in the year was talking about buying a boat.
Yeah, I remember.
Buying a boat is
yacht.
one of the worst decisions you can make.
Yeah.
Although,
It would be fun.
no, well, there's been a yacht spike in the world at the moment, so they're actually appreciating in value. They're more valuable now than what they were 12 to 24 months ago.
Yeah, but
When's that going to
that's
happen
not
again?
factoring in how much it costs to maintain them. Like when you're around salt water, these
Shit
things
rusts.
Yeah. The maintenance on them is so much, and even just to store, like to dock them at a marina, it costs
And then pay
so
someone
much.
to drive the thing. Do you drive a boat?
Yeah, you drive a
Drive
boat.
a boat, yeah. There you go.
Alright,
That's
so
how much
it's
I
a
know about boats.
I mean, I don't know. Like the biggest thing for me here is like I think we've obviously got to be careful about what we say and these kind of things. But I think the biggest thing is like if you want to get ahead, man, like you've got to fucking invest your money. I don't care whether you're earning 30 grand a year, 60 grand a year, 90 grand a year. Investing is the way that people build wealth. Yeah.
Little caveat to that. Not financial advice, obviously.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not. Like, just invest your money. Like, we're not telling you what to invest in, but you got to get it going, working for you. Like, the biggest penny drop for me over the last 2 years is the fact that I can make money while I'm sleeping.
He started hanging around me.
But with my business,
Me too.
with my savings, all these kind of things, right? And I think it's like, get your safety net, figure out what that is. It's different for everybody. Find out what that is, and then everything else invest. And that's whether it's in property, stocks, fucking whatever, right? But, if you want to get ahead, and like, that's what this fucking podcast is about. It's about helping people get ahead. That's the game.
Yeah. There's two things, actually, from the last 12 months of hanging out with you that I've learned. One is that making money while you sleep is fun.
Yeah.
But because you're so bullish and impulsive sometimes, and you go, yeah, fuck it, let's just go, riding the roller coaster of finance is actually pretty fun. Like the downs are like, okay, it's doing something. Like, what would Brayden think?
Who the fuck is this guy?
Like, no, seriously, bro. When it goes down,
mate. I had the shittest week ever last week,
dude. When it's rolling down,
balls.
when it's going down, I sit there. I genuinely say to myself, what would Brayden be saying? He'd be like, buy when everyone else is panicking. Like,
I just text him for reassurance. I'm like, hey, bro.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, honestly, man, it's the last 12 months. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, take the last week in the crypto space has been a big hit. But I'm like, it's going to come back up. Like, I think it's like, as far as I'm just a very optimistic person in general. And I don't sit there and panic that shit's going to go horribly. I'm like, oh, well, Brayden's more invested than I am and he's not stressing. So why should I?
Here's a little, here's a little cheat if you want to get through, the red zone when it comes to investing. Follow biased opinions on Twitter and only fill them with your feed, and then just go to Twitter and watch all the videos of everyone saying that everything's going to be okay. And it's fucking great. Because that's what I realized that whenever I'm in the red zone now, I just go to Twitter because I'm only following people that they help me with my biases.
Okay, yeah.
So, hey.
You know what the best investment decision would be for people to do is to do your research, obviously, pull the trigger, buy whatever it is that you want to buy, and then don't look at it for a year. If not longer. If you have reached a point where you know that this company is going to do well, they're a sound business, they run really well, pull the trigger and then just wait. And go big on those investments too when you do have a lot of resolve for them. Put
within your
say
means.
how much to
within your
wait.
means.
Yeah, but put a large allocation towards that thing and just wait. That will get you ahead.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree.
Within your means.
But that's how to save. That's how to get ahead, I guess.
But the same thing applies with a property. How much you put so much of your capital into a property and you do all of this due diligence towards it and this sort of thing, and then you wait, don't you? You don't check the price of your property every day.
No.
And that's the trap that we fall into because we're playing a long-term game when there's people who are playing the hourly game, who are playing the minute game.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
They just have different priorities to what we do. But because we're playing in a much smaller field, because we're not playing with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, there's no point playing their game. They're better off just putting the money in and waiting.
All right. Investors Podcast episode number 2, savings, get a safety net, figure out what that is, get to that point, and then start allocating.
Tax yourself.
And then start allocating some of that capital to either investing and building up your savings and getting your money to get to work for you. Big thanks to everyone for tuning into this episode. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, whether you're on podcast or YouTube. The more that you guys subscribe means obviously the downloads go up for us, and that's really important for us to be able to attract really great guests and continue to have these really great conversations. So big thanks for the support so far, and if you have any feedback as well, make sure you're dropping us feedback. If you want guests on, if you want topics covered, all of this stuff helps us create really great content for you guys and valuable content on how to build character, wealth, and your business as well, and really get ahead, because that's what we're doing it for. Peace.
Thank you.
Cheers.